on the YouTube page. Let us know when we're back live.
It is live.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Now we're back after a short little break. Director of Planning, John Woodford, continue on with the 2022 Polling District Review Report number 3. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a quick update report. There's no decisions required, just to, I guess, keep the council in the loop on what's going on. So this is our third report. Decisions that you've made so far were obviously endorsing the project moving ahead on the schedule that we laid out. And then we sought approval from the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board for up to a year's extension due to COVID-19 in terms of public consultation. And the board responded and they actually granted up to a 6-month extension. So we do have that in our pocket, I guess, if we're not able to finish by the end of December. And at your last meeting, you decided to keep the warden system and not seek public opinion on switching to a mayoral system of leadership, which was included in some previous reviews. So this report just discusses some public consultation as part of phase 1 of the review, and also provides a start to get into the, I guess, the comparisons that we'll do as we try to figure out both the right size of council and when we get into the actual districts. So phase 1 of the review involves deciding on the size of council. Council's earlier decision to stay with the warden system really simplifies that. So when we go to the public, we're not going to have to ask them, you know, do you want to switch to a mayor and warden, which in the past has really been most of the conversation when we go to the public. And it also is another factor. It's another elected official. So you don't have to weigh, well, how many districts, how many elected officials. It's a little simpler. And the direction from the board on phase 1 is the following that I've posted there. The board considers that the first phase of the review process should involve municipal councils determining, prior to considering boundary delineations and voter parity analysis, the appropriate number of councillors for the municipality. The board considers this decision to be extremely important and one that should be made only following consultation with senior staff and the public. The board indicates that when determining the appropriate size of council, key considerations should be the desired style of council, the governance structure of council, and a determination of an effective and efficient number of councillors. So an example of governance structure, I think I pointed this out in my first report, that, for example, HRM has community councils, and they have some decision-making powers that don't have to go up to the full council with some planning approvals and recreation and so on. Whereas in a unit like East Hants, all decisions go to council. So that's one difference. And another factor would be whether council is led by a mayor or warden. And again, that's an extra elected official. So if you're looking for some comparison with municipalities that have wardens versus mayors, that might come into consideration. And so in the January report, staff outlined public consultation proposed to take place with each phase. And in keeping with that report, the following community meetings have been arranged to garner public feedback on the size of council. So we have meetings booked on May 16th, 17th, and 18th in Kennecook, here in Elmsdale, and at the Uniac Fire Hall. And again, the intent is to reach all 3 regions of East Hants, so the meetings are more accessible. There'll also be an online survey that will go live a little bit later this month with another opportunity for feedback. And then once those events are complete, staff will bring a report forward regarding the size of council. And once council makes a decision on the size of council, we'll move on to phase 2. So just to let you know who we're comparing ourselves to, these are the municipalities, and it's basically every county, district, and regional municipality within central Nova Scotia, and obviously excluding towns and larger units such as HRM. So when we do that, and I do apologize, the table that was posted with your report had an adding error. So the average, I think it said 27.7 in your report, it's actually 2016. And as you can see, based on that, so these are the number of voters per district. East Hants is actually just a little bit below the average. And there's quite a range from 1264 in Queens up to 4300 in Kings County. So quite a range. And, some of that may depend on the style of leadership. There are, I think, still 4 municipalities on this list that have a warden system. And if there's a general trend here, I would say the larger municipalities tend to have more voters per councillor than the smaller units. It's just kind of a function of the, I guess, more rural nature maybe. And so anyway, first blush, with 11 councillors, East Hants isn't out of sync, I don't think you could say at all. Now, having said that, you may decide that you want to have a more streamlined council or pursue a larger council body. Like Pictou has 12 councillors with fewer residents, for example. And I should also mention that these numbers are not derived from the census. They came from the Nova Scotia voters list, and we got that from the province this month. So those are as up to date as we can get. If you saw the letter that we sent to Stats Canada, we have some great concerns about the census that was done in East Hants this time around. So, Mr. Chair, that's it. It's just, again, a quick update on what the factors that go into determining the size of council, including the governance structure, public input, and looking at comparable municipal units. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Woodford, for your presentation, John. We have a question from Councillor Rhino.
I don't think it's going to be much of a question, but I'm going on the record right now. I will listen to the people, what they say, at the 3 public meetings. But being involved in council over the years, and the number of years that I've been, I've seen the rural representation drop at least by 2 in the rural area. It has made it extremely difficult to cover the areas that are enlarged now. And I just, if anything, with the uptake in the new developments that are coming online within the next number of years, I think we may, reasonably look at increasing that. But for right now, I mean, my area, I think it's the largest geographical area there is, and I am pressed to get to one area to the other. If the only way that really could consideration of that, if council was a full-time and that was your only vocation, then it may be, but even that's a push. So I just wanted to go on the record of saying that, like, we possibly should, if consideration at all, should be given to increasing with the upcoming developments. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Councillor Rhino. Next up is Councillor Green, followed by the warden.
I won't take very long. Councillor Rhino said it all. It is, there's big areas out here to cover, and if it was a full-time position, probably could get to everywhere and do everything that you wanted to do and needed to do. But right now, it's like I'm 25 minutes to the end of my district. It is to get there. So just agreeing with Councillor Rhino wholeheartedly.
Warden Rolson.
And just to comment on that, at one time in my earlier years on council, when we did these boundary reviews, community of interest and geographical interest was right up there on par with voter representation as things to take into consideration. And over the years, that's gotten whittled away. And I really think that at times it depends on, I'm sorry, but who you draw, what straw you draw from the Utility and Review Board. Because very clearly there are folks on that board who were quite comfortable with lower numbers of representation that we had and probably met with our original submission last time, but didn't suit the viewpoints of the 2 folks that we drew. So it is kind of, it is what it is, and we'll do what we have to do. But I do believe that rural representation is and continues to be important. And even as the more traditionally non-rural areas grow, their representation is important too. But I do think it it will be important for future councils in particular to understand that it shouldn't be at the expense of rural representation, if at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next up is Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To you, John. Is a number of voters should be equal or close, or like we only see averages from the other municipalities, but we don't see the gap between like each councillor, how many representatives they have. I think it would help if we could, I don't know if we could get those, but if we could get a margin, like how the fluctuation is.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, that I'm not sure that information would be relevant. Like we could probably, we might be able to get that information. The trouble is they're all going through boundary reviews right now too. And we're all under the same mandate to try and bring them within plus or minus 5% within each district. So,
I thought it was 10%.
It's plus or minus 5, and then they'll let you go more if you have a larger rationale.
It used to be 10.
Yeah.
So to add to this, so if we are not flexible, if we have like if we have to be closed, then we're gonna be forced to split some like Enfield Grand Lake. It's more rural than Corridor, so that could go with probably Councillor Hebb, or like Milford is kind of more rural than, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we're not gonna be able to do that unless you put like if in a rural area to be able to afford like to add up 300 or 400 or 500 residents to each district. They're gonna be huge. Like there's no growth over there, so I don't know what to do. You're gonna have a councillor that represent the whole rural areas, which is not right in my opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Musa. Councillor Rhino, then Councillor Garden-Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Like, all right, through you to John, following up on the wardens there. I've been through the same amount of reviews as the warden. You know, we were always informed it was plus or minus 10%, and that's what we based our decisions on, was plus or minus 10%. Now you're telling me, has it been dropped, or were we told something that the breakdown wasn't correct?
Well, the guidance from the board changes over time, and I think you're right. At one time, they were a little more lenient with the plus or minus, and less so now.
Oh, well, that puts, an added pressure to the rural areas. That's very unfair to the rural areas, and this is the first I'm hearing of this, and if I missed it somewhere, I fully apologize. But why weren't we informed of this before? And we could have at least wrote to the powers that be expressing our concern with this figure.
So I'm gonna, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just gonna go back and check, make sure I'm giving you the right advice here. Oh no, I'm sorry. You're right. It is still officially 10% plus or minus, and that was in my first report. So you didn't miss it. I had it wrong. The wording around it has changed a little bit, that they want you to really try to, I guess, get the voter parity as close as possible. And they still officially will allow you up to a plus or minus 25% variance. But you really have to justify that based on a community of interest, or the only district I can think that we ever were able to do that was Shubenacadie, because the board directed us to keep Indian Brook and Shubenacadie together in the same district. And when you add those populations together, it was over the 10%.
Well, John, this is one time I'm really glad you're wrong on that one. And my blood pressure just once you came back down. Thank you.
All right, next up, Councillor Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. John, can you just give me, I know we've talked about it here, but can you just give me a brief synopsis this is board driven and how this process works in a nutshell.
Well, basically, every 8 years, the board wants you to look at all your polling districts, a number of them, and the relative voter strength, from one district to another to make sure it's fair, essentially, and that the district still makes sense geographically and as communities grow and so on. So they've set it up as a 2-step process, which is a bit awkward at times, where you have to decide on the size of council before you actually see what the districts look like based on those decisions. So the last time out, for example, council was debating a few different options. We had 12 districts, and they were looking at increased or decreasing down to as low as 9. I think we looked at options of 9, 10, and 11, and maybe 12 as well, because that's when we settled on, and the board sent it back to us. But anyway, it's set up in 2 separate phases. Phase 1 is decide the size of your council, and then phase 2 decide the actual boundaries for the districts based on some of those other factors. And then when we're done this, council will have to endorse the new map, and then we send that to the Utility and Review Board. They will hold a hearing. We'll present the information on behalf of the municipality, and the board will either accept it or they will send it back to us, like they did last time when they told us to go back and lower the number of districts to 11 because we had proposed 12. And so then we had to go back for another hearing with the board before they accepted the map.
Okay, thank you.
Sandra, just let you know your video has stopped. Councilor Rhino.
Yes, just in addition to that, to give a little history on the last one. The last one, we went through those public consultations on the number of councillors. Not very well attended. The only ones that, did come out was they wanted the extreme change. It added division to the municipality, whereby the corridor area, some people spoke out in the corridor area, wanting to reduce further the number of councillors in the rural area. So it did divide the municipality that way. And so I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, that this can be very divisive.
Gordon Rolston.
Yes, and as John has said, last time after reviewing all the possibilities, council actually felt we should stay at 12 councillors and thought we had presented a very good, reasoning behind that, and were able to adjust the boundaries in what we felt was a fair manner. And the Utility and Review Board came back and said, no, you need to reduce. So if I remember correctly, then the first attempt we made to reduce, it split Indian Brook between 2 districts, so that the large overage didn't impact one particular district. But then the Utility and Review Board came back and said, no, you must maintain the community of Indian Brook in one district. So it's not easy, because you're trying to manage communities of interest. You're trying to manage population within plus or minus 10%. And you're trying to balance geography. And yeah, we've had some doozies over the years. So.
Is that it, Warden?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, John, for your report. Seeing nobody left to talk. Be looking to adjourn. Oops, hit the wrong button here. Sorry. Be looking for a call to adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councilor Musa. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned. Over to you, Councilor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We call our Infrastructure and Operation Committee to order. The only item is
Approval of the minutes.
It looks like perhaps he's frozen.
It appears he's frozen.
Is he holding his breath?
He's very good at it.
I can see.
It would appear that we've lost temporarily Counselor Musa. Who
Take
is
over,
the-
Warden.
I was gonna say, who's the vice chair? Is the vice chair of the INO here? So I know we're missing Counselor Knockwood and Counselor Eisner. If council is willing, I would certainly chair the committee until such time as Counselor Musa is able to be back online.
Go ahead.
Okay, the first item of business would be the approval of the minutes of March 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion has carried. The next item is the Pace Bylaw, and I believe we have Andrea with us today.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
So as you know, the municipality council's approved moving forward to doing a pilot program for PACE, so the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. And so in response to that, we require a bylaw, which essentially allows us to, under the MGA, able to charge people and have interest charged on these programs. So essentially what's attached for you today is a copy of the bylaw. The report is essentially just a recommended motion for that. And Shirley can share to the actual bylaw. So the bylaw basically speaks to the fact that as council, you are able to make charges when it comes to equipment, which is what we're doing for our property assessment program, and talks about the financial component, which you know, we've certainly had conversations with Sue and her team with relation to how we would charge interest and how that part would be managed. So that's essentially what the bylaw is for. So I guess I'd open it up for questions.
I'll turn the chair back over to Counselor Musa now. Rejoined us.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost my internet. I don't know what happened, but boot me right out. So anyway, yeah, okay, Deputy Warden.
Yes,
Sorry,
Chair.
I didn't know who was on first, but I'll try to.
Curious to see where the 100,000 comes from.
I believe it's special reserves. Jesse's nodding. I see Sue. Sue?
Through the chair, we've set aside contingency reserves for this
Contingency reserves.
because it's the intent of the program goes forward and people actually apply for a loan. We will temporary finance from these reserves and then we'll recoup it over a local improvement loan over a 10-year period. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is that all, Deputy Warden?
That's all for now.
Councilor Reiner.
100,000. Yeah, just for clarification. So we're looking to the bylaw to charge fees to delinquent accounts or accounts on this and interest. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, so the program, everybody would be charged a very low interest rate. And so this allows us to do that. This allows us to actually set up the program where we can set up the loan through us and charge a minimal interest rate.
Well, as you know, I was not in favor of this the way it stood because it didn't take into consideration, I think wells, well water was high on my priority list to help people out with. And really, hearing the ask today, I would have rather directed that money to that ask this morning. But having said that, this is a go, so, we have to have something that will protect the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rhino. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommended motion that Executive Committee move that the Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend to Council give first reading of bylaw IO 500 Property Assessed Clean Energy Program.
Any second? Okay, moved by Councillor Perry, seconded by Councillor Hebb. Any question? Question being called. We go for the vote. And it passed unanimously. I think that's it for. Yeah. Motion to adjourn from INO.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor? We are adjourned. Okay, now back to the warden. I think we're going in camera.
Question, councilors, we are at 3 minutes to 12. We do have 2 items for in camera. If we go into those now, we're certainly going to run over the lunch hour. So I guess my question is, do you want to stay on and finish this and catch us up? Or do you want these moved to the end of the day?
I would just comment as well. We did allow 55 minutes on the agenda for these 2 items, but I don't believe that they are lengthy items. So perhaps Andrea and Adam could maybe comment on how much time they think they will need, but I don't believe you're going to need that much time.
I would agree, having read them over, that probably not. Deputy Warden, we'll wait and hear from Andrea and Adam first on the time frame.
Yep. Madam Warden, through you. So for the second item on the in-camera, probably take about 5 to 10 minutes to walk through the report, plus and pending any council discussion after the 10 minutes of the report.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would say the same probably for solid waste.
Okay, Councillor Rhino and
I would
Councillor
move-
Mitchell.
I would move we divert these 2 in-person and camera issues to the end of the day.
Do we have a seconder?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Deputy Warden, I missed you there. You were on prior to the question.
My question was that because the weather hasn't made a change yet, people might have things to do over the noon hour to get them done and move it to the end of the day. So
Okay,
that was my suggestion, and I'll vote for the motion.
okay, Councillor Green.
Just to say, if we were in chambers today, we'd be 10 minutes going to somewhere to eat and 10 minutes driving back, and we could have these 2 done and out of the way. Just my thoughts.
Well, the motion is to move them till the end of the day. Are you ready for the question?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor? Doesn't matter to me. Motion is against. Councillor Green voting nay. So just before we go to lunch, it is 11:59, about to flip over by my clock to noon. I would ask for a motion to adjourn to return at 1:30. And before we leave, I would like to observe the minute of silence in recognition and remembrance of the victims of the mass shooting tragedy.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion has passed unanimously. We will now observe our moment of silence. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.